Incandescent light bulb, 1835. Thomas Edison invented the first patentable light bulb on January 27, 1880, but the first electric light bulb was produced decades earlier. In 1835, Scotsman James Bowman Lindsay produced constant electric light in what would become a prototype of the modern light bulb. Automatic calculator, 1832. In 1821, Charles Babbage began working on the first automatic calculating machine. Due to funding problems, the project was abandoned in 1832. The photo shows a completed section of the machine called Difference Engine No. 1. It is still in perfect working condition today. Milking machine, 1895. Late in the 19th century, hundreds of patents for milking machines were applied for in the United States. The Scottish Thistle Company made the first efficient machine in 1895. Pictured is the 1923 Surge milker, which was more efficient and easier to clean. Breakfast cereal, 1894. In 1894, John Harvey Kellogg and his brother, Will Keith Kellogg, were trying to develop foods to conform to a healthy diet. They left cooked wheat lying out too long, and when they pressed it with rollers, it broke into flakes. During an early meeting, as they were passing out samples, one of the workers yelled, "Cornflakes!" Ferris wheel, 1893. In 1893, civil engineer George Ferris convinced investors to cover the $400,000 cost of a new attraction for the Chicago World's Fair. More than 1.5 million visitors paid 50 cents for a 22-minute ride on the Ferris wheel. It was a major draw at the fair. Fingerprinting, 1892. In 1892, Juan Fucetich, an Argentine chief police officer, created the first method of recording the fingerprints of individuals on file. Fucetich and a colleague found a bloody thumbprint at a crime scene and compared it to the thumb of a woman who had killed her sons. Snellen eye chart, 1862. Dutch ophthalmologist Herman Snellen developed the eye chart in 1862. He determined that a letter 3/10 of an inch high, or size 20, could be identified by most people with normal eyesight at a distance of 20 feet, or 20/20 vision. Sewing machine, 1834. In 1790, British inventor Thomas Saint patented a device to puncture leather and pass thread through the holes, but it was never built. In 1834, Walter Hunt developed the first sewing machine as we know it today, but he failed to patent it. Elias Howe patented a similar machine 12 years later. X-ray photography, 1895. While experimenting with cathode rays in 1895, German physicist Wilhelm Röntgen realized they produced another kind of radiation when they hit the glass on the cathode ray tube. He called them X-rays because X stands for the unknown in mathematics. Tire valve, 1891. The tire valve is an invention that has not changed in more than a century. It is still found on all cars and bicycles. German immigrant August Schrader owned rubber depots in Manhattan. His tire valve provided an airtight seal for inflating tires. Blue jeans, 1873. In 1873, Levi Strauss was selling buttons, cloth, and canvas overalls to miners in San Francisco. One of his customers, Jacob Davis, devised a method to strengthen the pockets with rivets. The design was patented on May 20, 1873. They weren't called jeans until 1960. Payphone, 1889. U.S. inventor William Gray devised the first coin-operated payphone in 1889 to meet the needs of travelers. By 1998, the invention had reached its peak as more people had cell phones. The photo shows a late 20th century telephone booth. Time zones, 1878. Before time zones were introduced, every town kept its own local time. With the advent of the railway system, this became inconvenient. Scottish engineer Sir Sanford Fleming suggested time zones be established around the world. Each 15-degree change in longitude would have a different time zone. Adjustable wrench, 1891. In 1888, Swedish inventor Johann Peter Johansson developed what he called the iron hand, otherwise known as a pipe wrench. The pipe wrench would often ruin rusty or stuck bolts, so in 1891 he refined his design to produce the adjustable wrench. Escalator, 1891. 16-year-old American Jesse Reno came up with the idea of an inclined elevator in 1891. It was renamed escalator in 1897 when Charles Seeberger combined scala, Latin for stairs, and elevator, a device invented years earlier. Phonograph, 1877. On November 21, 1877, Thomas Edison announced the invention of the first device for recording and playing sound. It worked by engraving a visual representation of sound waves on a piece of tinfoil. Vaseline, 1872. British chemist Robert Chesebro invented Vaseline in 1872. He demonstrated his product by traveling around the U.S. He would burn his skin with acid or a flame, then rub Vaseline over the wounds. It had no medical effects, but would speed healing by sealing the wound. Aspirin, 1899. In 1832, French chemist Charles Gerhardt discovered that salicylic acid from the bark of willow trees reduced pain but produced stomach upsets. In 1899, biochemist Felix Hoffmann simplified the formula and came up with acetyl salicylic acid, otherwise known as aspirin. Facsimile machine, 1842. In 1842, Scottish clockmaker Alexander Bain invented the recording telegraph, the ancestor of the modern fax machine. It used a pendulum swung over metal type to detect light and dark spots. It transmitted the spots as electrical pulses. Telephone, 1876. In the 1870s, Alexander Graham Bell was working on a way to improve the telegraph when he developed the telephone. President Rutherford B. Hayes said that the telephone was an amazing invention, but who would ever want to use one?